Okay, let's read the first one. Should we read this much? Yes, I think it's
Of
better to
course.
read. Let's read it quickly. So what we are going to do, are we going to scan or skim? Scan is reading every line, every word for you're looking for something. But scanning is you kind of reading it. You are just trying to remember. Just over. No, I think it will be in between scanning and skimming.
Gaming, yeah.
Scanning is read for particular information. Here we are not really reading for particular
Sir,
information, but overall.
as for first line, we should skim it, and as for the others, we
Skim it.
may.
Okay, so this one. Okay, let's read it. Let's read it. Venus in transit. In June 2004, I saw the first passage known as transit of the planet Venus across the face of the sun in 122 years. Transit have helped shape our view of the whole universe, as Heather, Cooper, and Nigel Arthur Hent best explains. Okay, let's read it. Let's read it. In June, okay, in June, okay, more than half the population of the world were treated to a rather astronomical event, rather rare, huh? To a rare astronomy in what 2004, half of the population of the world. For over 6 hours, the planet Venus steadily inched its way over the surface of the sun, and we could see it. We could see the Venus steadily inches. Inches way means gradually move,
Nearness
slowly,
gradually
slowly,
progressing. Yeah.
slowly. After this transit of Venus was the first since 6 December 1882. So it takes place after hundreds of years. Huh? Think about 1882 and 2004. How many years? On that occasion, the American astronomer Professor Simon Newcomb led to a party to South Africa to observe events. Do you remember whether we are looking for this word, this person's name? Was it there? Was it there in list of people?
I think it wasn't.
It wasn't. Okay, it wasn't. But still, we can, if we want, it's up to us. We can underline. It's not a big deal because.
Maybe we need it.
Okay, just no problem. So led to a party to South Africa to observe the. Okay, so they were based at a school girls where it is alleged. What is alleged? Alleged. What is alleged? Alleged.
Related.
Related, but without any proof. No,
Yeah.
I'm stating. I'm trying to assert something, but without any proof.
Proof.
That the combined forces of three headmistresses outformed the professionals with the accuracy of their observation. Alleged that the combined forces of three school mistresses outperformed money, they did better. So, do you understand what we read? And we are going to check it. We are going to check it whether any of the information stated here, any of the information stated here is where? Where? Whether what? Whether we can find it where? Whether we can find it here in any of the information. Can we read it? So 14. Examples of different ways in which the parallax. Is it there? Did they mention anything like that? No. I don't think so. A description of an event which prevented a transit observation. So did it prevent? Did they prevent anything stated? No, I don't think so. A statement about potential future discovery leading from the transit. Potential future? No, I don't think so. A description of physical states connected with Venus, which early astronomical instruments failed to overcome. No, they didn't go that. I don't think they never bothered. Okay, so no, nothing. So you get it? No. And what about the next one? Let's read it. You'll have to do it like that. This is how it works. Let's read it. For centuries, transit of Venus has drawn explorers and astronomers alike to the four corners of the world. Okay, so the first sentence is very important. So it gives you an insight into what you are going to follow. So they're saying for centuries, transit Venus has drawn explorers. So people have what? Moved from different place to different place in order to experience this transit. And very likely we are going to have the description of that. Okay, and you can put it all down to extraordinary polymath. So you can
Really?
put it all down to the extraordinary polymath Edmund Halley. Edmund Halley, is it there?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, yes,
It's there.
probably even in question 3 or even in
Four.
question. So what we can do one thing, just
Highlights.
highlight. Okay, let's put a highlight. So we know that. So in November 1677, Halley observed a transit of the innermost Mercury. Okay, from the desolate islands of St. Helena in the Pacific, South Pacific. He realized that from different latitudes, the passage of the planet across the sun's disk would appear to differ. By timing the transit from two widely separate locations, teams of astronomers could calculate the parallax angle, the apparent difference in position of an astronomical body due to difference in the observer's position.
Position.
Calculating this angle would allow astronomers to measure what was then ultimate goal at that time, the distance of Earth from the Sun. This distance is known as the astronomical unit of AU. So what we read, I think the reason why they say they travel the world in order to experience this phenomenon. You get my point?
Yes, sir.
Because it would help them to this information in order to get some information about this and distance apart from the sun. বুঝছেন? ওইটা যদি
Yeah.
if they could do that, they would. So now we are going to read. Say, do you remember what we have read? Kind of.
Yes, sir.
Kind of. You don't get that much time. You can read 2 or 3 times because you will lose the time. What about the next one? So examples are different ways in which parallax principle has been applied. I don't think so. Not different ways. They just mentioned about parallax. A description of an event which prevented transit. No, I don't
No,
think
sir.
so. Then a statement about potential future discovery leading on from transit. Okay, so is there anything? Is there anything?
Future discoveries. Future discoveries.
Examples, a statement. So even what is that? Which one?
Maybe
16.
number 16 will
A
be the
statement about potential future discovery leading on from.
Transient.
No, they were not talking about potential. They were
Yeah,
sure that what they
They
can.
don't even talk
Uh,
about future discoveries.
A description of physical states connected with Venus, which early astronomical instrument failed to overcome. No, I don't think so.
No,
They
no.
didn't mention them. So very likely we didn't find anything. Okay. And were we being able to underline anything here? Only one. Edmund. Okay, now let's move on to C. This is the way it works. You don't have any shortcuts because you'll have to read it. Halley, let's read it. Halley was aware that the AU was one of the most fundamental of all astronomical measurements. Okay, they first try to understand it. Halley was because it gives you some insight. So what we're going to read it might even help you with the answers. Halley was aware that AU, what's that? Astronomical unit. Was one of the most fundamental of all answers. So aware, he knew that it's very important. Johannes Kepler in the early 17th century had shown that the distance of the planets from the sun governed their orbital speed, which were easily measurable. But no one had found a way to calculate accurate distance to the planets from the Earth. The goal was to measure the AU, astronomical unit. Then, knowing the orbital speed of all the other planets around the sun, the scale of the solar system would fall in place. The scale. Then we'll be able to understand the speed and the distance. However, Halley. Okay, let's put Halley. Sorry.
Sir, even Johannes Kepler, I think we have to highlight also.
Second line.
Where is that? Sorry.
Second line.
The second line.
The second. Okay. Here. Fine. Then let's move on to the next one.
Halley.
Okay. However, Halley realized that Mercury was so far away that its parallax angle would be very difficult to determine. As Venus was closer to the Earth, its parallax angle would be larger, and Halley worked out that by using Venus, it would be possible to measure the Sun's distance to 1 part in 500. But there was a problem. Transit of Venus, unlike those of Mercury, are rare, occurring in pairs at a roughly 8 years apart every 100 or so years. Nevertheless, he accurately predicted that Venus would cross the face of the Sun in both 1761 and 1760, though he didn't survive to see either. But nevertheless, he accurately predicted that Venus would cross the face of the Sun in both 1761 and 1769, though he didn't survive. Okay, anything, do you understand what we read? Do you remember? So it was easy for Venus, but difficult for others. And if we could do that, we'll be able to understand what, the distances.
Yeah,
okay, so let's read it, whether we can find anything. Example of different ways in which parallax principle has been applied. And do you think that? Okay, we were reading C as a description of the event which prevented Did they mention anything? I don't think so.
No,
A statement about potential future discoveries leading on from transit observation. Potential future?
No, sir.
Potential? No, not potential. I don't think potential. They thought that, okay, future, not future discoveries. It was real discovery.
Yeah.
17, a description of physical state connected with Venus, which early astronomers failed to overcome. Physical state?
Maybe.
A description of physical states. A description of physical states connected with Venus, which early astronomical instruments failed to. Is there anything? Any instrument? Did they mention any instrument?
They didn't mention instruments.
Any instrument. They didn't mention instruments. No, I don't think so. So we are done with ABC. Let's move on to the second one. Okay, now here. Now D, 1, 2, 3, 4. Very likely we are going to get 4 of these. Very likely. Huh? So we'll have to read properly. Now let's read it. Let's read it. Okay, let's read it. First sentence is always important because at least it foreshadows what we are going to read. Inspired by Halley's suggestion. And let's read. Inspired by Halley's suggestion of a way to pin down the scale of the solar system. Scale. Okay, so here let's do Halley's. Okay, what we're going to do. Teams of British and French astronomers set out on expedition to places as diverse as India and Siberia. Huh? Okay, then what? But things weren't helped by Britain and France being at war. Okay, so they were at war, so it didn't help them. The person who deserves most sympathy is the French astronomer Guillaume Le Gentle. Okay, so let's do this.
It's in the names.
It's the names. It's the names. And is there any other names? Other names? No, not yet. Okay, so let's move on to. Listen, it doesn't have to be like that. We're always doing. You can even read the whole thing. Then you know the names. You can even underline that. You don't have to even. You can one thing because you might be distracted. You can even put some sign here. No problem. You can even put some. It doesn't have to be. You'll have to do that. Okay. So now what happens? Now he was thwarted. Thwarted means what? What is thwarted? Anybody? You know the word?
Yeah. I mean, such a frustrated.
Frustrated, or he failed.
Somebody.
He was thwarted by the fact that the British were besieging his observation site at the Pondicherry in India. So French, he couldn't go to Pondicherry. Why? Because the Indians They were at war with the Indians and the British, and the British were occupying that place. Fleeing in French warship crossing the Indian Ocean. Lee Gentle, I'm not sure, saw a wonderful transit, but the ship's pitching and rolling ruled out any attempt at making accurate observation. You get my point? He could see that the transit was there, accurate transit, but you can measure it while you are in sea and the ship is moving. Get my point? So he failed. He was in the best of position, but he couldn't do it as he was in a ship. Okay, now let's read it. Undaunted. Undaunted means what that? Daunt means fearful. And he was not afraid. He remained south of the equator, keeping himself busy by studying the islands of Mauritius and Madagascar before setting off to observe the next transit in Philippines. So what he did, undoubtedly, he remained south of the equator, keeping himself busy by studying the island. So he couldn't help it. So what he did, he was studying the Mauritius and these two islands. He didn't waste his time, probably. This thing is, and he was going for what? Philippines, for his next place from where he would be able to watch it, next transit. Ironically, what is ironically? Paradoxically, ironically, after traveling means as a pity. After traveling nearly 50,000 kilometers, his view was clouded out at the last moment, a very dispirited experience. So when probably what I believe he reached Philippines, but cloud was there. Cloud was there, so he couldn't see. He could have probably watched the. So what we read here, we understand mostly about this person, and another one. So inspired by Halley's team and British and they were at war and all those stuff. Let's move on to this one. Can we find it? 14. Which one? Examples of
the number 15.
15 maybe the answer.
Sorry. So what?
A description of an event which prevented a transit observation.
Okay, this one. So what was that? I think
cloud.
And even it was a transit observation. It was war, all those stuffs.
Where
there are 2 or 3.
Cloud, yeah.
So it could be just even one of them, but I think it covers. So it should be what? I think 15 should be D. So you write what? You write here?
D.
D. Okay, so we got it. So what about the next one? Let's read the next one. While the early transit timings were as precise as instruments would allow, the measurements were dogged means key. Prevented.
Yeah.
Prevented by the black drop effect. While the early transit timings were precise as instruments would allow. But it was many years ago, but the biggest problem was drop back effect. When Venus begins to cross the sun's disk, it looks smeared or circular. Not circular. Smeared money, not circular, like a little bit what? Like a lemon. Think about lemon. Is lemon circular? No. It has rather a oval shape rather than a circle, which makes it difficult to establish timing. So it's difficult. This is due to diffraction of light. The second problem is that Venus exhibits a halo of light when it is seen just outside the sun. So the second problem, so there's some problem. Venus exhibits a halo means a kind of a circle of when it's just outside the sun's disk. While this showed astronomers that Venus was surrounded by a thick layer of gases refracting sunlight around it, both effects made it impossible to obtain accurate timings. So these are the problems which were making instrument and Other phenomena that were making problems. So which one? Any? Could we find it?
Maybe the 17.
A description of physical states connected with Venus, which earlier failed. OJ, you know, those smear, those are the problem. It's a black effect. And circular, all these. So these were making problems of Venus. Take a set. So
Yes,
what
sir.
we're going to write? What are we going to write? We're going to write what? Which one? E. I think this is E. Then what about the next one? Let's read it. But astronomers labored hard to analyze. Labored means they worked hard to analyze the result of this expedition to observe Venus. Okay, so Jonahan, let's check it. Director of the Berlin Observatory finally determined a value for the AU based on all this parallax measurement. Okay, this 1 kilometer. Okay, so I think from Earth to Sun, very likely. Reasonably accurate for the time. This is quite close to today's value. So it's kind of similar because they didn't have all these instruments. Determined by radar. Now we have determined by radar. It's more accurate, which has now superseded transits and all other methods. So you don't need a transit now, because radar, you don't need a transit for accuracy. The AU
May I ask you something?
Please.
Short. Is the meaning of those briefly fashionable or enthusiasm is a secondary meaning or primary meaning?
Which one?
The previous paragraph we found dodged or dogged. Is it, enthusiasm or briefly fashionable? Is it primary meaning or secondary meaning?
Okay, let's see.
Okay.
Dogged here is determined. This is one, dogged. What about only dog as a verb? This is dogger. These are different ideas. Okay, what about dog as a verb? Let's see. EOG. As a verb. Person, let's see. Inferior. Bother somebody, follow someone closely. Grip something but with mechanical device. Dog.
If we add ed structure, D-O-double-G-E-D, what will
that was determined. That was dogged. Dogged. Participle is dogged. Following closely. Continued dogging her footsteps. Was dogged by bad luck. Means it was following. And any other thing, dogged. Meteorology, fog pro, mechanical, gripping tool, useless as a person, offensive term, wild animal, male dog, domestic animal. So, which one? Let's see the meaning. Kothai?
In paragraph E.
Okay, paragraph E. Where is that?
Yeah, the second line.
Where dogged by? Oh, it was followed. It was crippled by. It was disturbed by.
Okay.
It was creating problem. Dogged.
Yeah, but
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in your PDF, it was written that briefly fashionable or enthusiasm. So that's why I asked.
Okay, it was. Okay, I'll check.
Okay.
I'll check that. I think it's more contextual.
Okay.
In that sense, that's the meaning from the sentence. From that sentence, there could be different meanings. That's it. The AU as a cosmic and basic scale of universe today, the parallax. So we don't need those. There is a cosmic measuring as a rod and basis of how we scale the universe today. The parallax principle can be extended to to measure that distance to the stars. If you look at the star in January, when Earth is at one point in its orbit, it will seem to be in the different position from. Sorry. We were. Name. Okay. Any other name here? Were we checking any name? No. Okay, in January, the Earth, it will seem to be in a different position from where it appears 6 months. Knowing the width of Earth's orbit, the parallax shift, let's calculate distance. So it's not now, you know, we can do the, so which one? Which one? A statement of
Sir,
potential
the number
future.
14.
14. Sure, 14 or 16. You know, 14 they mention, you see, they mention what? 14, AJ. AJ, this parallax can be extended to measure the distance of stars. AJ, a future
Yes.
event. I think,
Parallax principle.
I think very likely is going to be F. And it's going to be F. Konta jano?
Malocus.
AJ, example which as F. This is F. Should we have to check that for the last one, or it's decided? No, still we need to check it. In June of 2004, transit of Venus was thus more of an astronomical spectacle than a specifically important one. It was not important because we have already figured out the distance. But such transit have paved the way for what might prove to be one of the most vital breakthrough in the cosmos, detecting Earth-sized planets orbiting other stars. But such transit have proved the way for what might prove to be one of the most vital breakthrough in the cosmos, detecting Earth-sized planets, because orbiting other stars. So oita korte giye we discover other stars. ঠিক আছে? হ্যাঁ, ওইটা দিয়ে আমরা আবিষ্কার করেছিলাম। তারপর ওখান থেকে আমরা যদি আবিষ্কার না করতে পারতাম, আমরা তাহলে কি করতে পারতাম না, ততদিনে যে এতদিনে যে কাজগুলো হয়েছে সেগুলো কাজগুলো আবার নতুন করে করতে হতো। হ্যাঁ, এই যে আমরা তো রাডার থেকে আবিষ্কার হতো, তো ডিসটেন্সটা আমাদের একটা ব্যাপার ছিল না। তাহলে কোনটা? এটা কি লাস্টেরটা? Could it be this one? Could it be examples of different in which parallax has been applied? হ্যাঁ, এই যে parallax principle, is it this one? Do you think? No. এটা